Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse, and thank you so much for joining me live tonight. It's great to be back on the show. So we've got a lot to go over in tonight's show. So one of the biggest things is an update to a recent DOD directive, which literally, as I'm going to be showing you, I brought receipts. We'll read the language together. Basically says that the military can get involved in certain situations, and they can assist local police, local command, etc., and potentially even use lethal force against U.S. citizens. And so as we head into the election, and there's all this discussion of civil war, and we have the patriots that are down in the Carolinas helping out in the Asheville area and other areas down there that are now being labeled as domestic terrorists. Things are heating up. I mean, it's going to be there's going to be a lot going on, which we'll be talking about in tonight's show. Before we jump in, though, I got a few quick messages for you. First off, folks, big question for you. Are your savings safe? So with every passing day, the value of the dollar erodes, weakened by overprinting and rampant inflation. And now, as the BRICS nations accelerate their de-dollarization plan to collapse the dollar, the risk only grows. Imagine waking up one morning to find your hard-earned savings worth only a fraction of what they were. It's happening faster than you think, but you have a choice, a simple shift. One decision can protect your wealth from the collapse. Moving even a small portion of your savings into gold and silver could be the key to securing your future. Gold and silver have stood the test of time. They're not just metals, they're safe havens, impervious to the whims of inflation and economic turmoil. So while the dollar loses value, gold and silver stand strong. The time to act is now, folks. Before the dollar weakens further, safeguard your savings with noble gold. Folks, imagine the peace of mind knowing that your wealth is protected, that you're going to have assets that you can pass on to your children. It's simple, it's safe, and it's easy. And it's something you can do today. So, folks, I highly recommend, and do your own research, but moving some of your savings from the vulnerable IRAs into 401ks into the enduring strength of gold and silver, because when the dollar fails, you're going to be glad that you did. And there's no better company to work with than Noble Gold. So protect your future. Act now. Call 626-654-1906 or visit goldwithseth.com to get your free gold and silver investment guide. Again, that's 626-654-1906. Another thing, folks, actually, I'm excited to tell you about is here.com. So it's a new sponsor I've got, which, folks, I'm independent. So these sponsors are what allow me to make this work. It's what allows me to be here with you and talk about things that the mainstream folks don't want us talking about. So again, this sponsor, here.com, fantastic sponsor. I want you to check them out. So if you've ever been frustrated with hearing loss, here.com is exactly where you need to go. These folks are the real deal. They've got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, a 4.9 rating at Consumer Affairs, and over 500,000 people are already loving their tiny, super powerful German hearing aids. 500,000. And the positive reviews keep rolling. So take Jerry, a podcast listener who wrote in saying that the in-home exam made everything so convenient and his new devices are extremely comfortable compared to the old ones. Or James, who called working with here.com a total win and said it's one of the best investments he's ever made. And the best part is, with insurance, flexible financing options, and 100% money back guarantee, here.com makes getting great hearing aids super easy. So if you're ready to stop saying what and start hearing the world clearly, now is the time. So right now at here.com/Seth, you can sign up for an exclusive 45-day no-risk trial, and you'll get a free hearing aid consultation so you can hear the difference for yourself. So what are you waiting for? Head to here.com/Seth. That's HEAR.com/Seth. And folks, this right here, this little tiny thing, this is the hearing aid, right? It's just a small little thing that disappears behind your ear and no one will even notice it. It's this tiny little thing. You can even connect your phone to it. So again, that's here.com/Seth. All right, folks, jumping into tonight's show. It's interesting because I love when I post these shows on social media, Telegram or Twitter, and Telegram's great. I get a lot of interaction on Telegram. The headline for tonight's show is Red Alert, Military Now Authorized to Kill Americans on U.S. Soil. Ron Paul's dire warning. So I'm going to play that video of Ron Paul, but the point that I was making is that when I post my content, I love seeing the reactions of the content before I even jump into the shows. And it was interesting seeing this because there's a mixed bag of reactions. Some people, their reaction is, okay, yeah, of course, this makes sense. We're seeing all the signs. I believe it. But there's also a lot of folks who are saying, look, this is just clickbait. It's fear porn. The military is not going to do that. And, I want to look, my hope personally, and we'll get into this, this evening, is that most people in the military would never turn on their own people, right? They would never turn on the American citizens. That's my hope. But I'm going to be showing you a lot of information today that paints a picture that says, look, we should at least be aware of the potential of this happening, right? We can't just bury our head in the sand. I mean, if you look at what's happened, even the past, say, 3 years or 4 years, if you look at what's happening, almost everything that has happened, whether it was the pandemic, the jab rollout, the lockdowns, the forced masks, the job mandates, whatever this stuff was, not to mention censorship, I mean, just a complete weaponization of our agencies against we the people. At every stage, you could have looked at it and said, yeah, you know what? This is kind of fear porn and let's not talk like that. But then as soon as it happens, everyone's looking around saying, where'd this come from? And there's a handful of people like yourselves are probably out on the street corners yelling like, folks, this is what's going on. Like, hide your kids, lock up, go buy your food, make sure you've got enough stashed away. This is the reality of it. And so that's a big part of what I'm trying to do with the show, Man in America, is just look at the issues that you're not going to find on Fox News. They're not talking about these things, especially not finding them on CNN. Or if you do, it's the exact opposite of what's really true. But to look at these things soberly and say, hey, folks, like, is this alarming to you? Because this is concerning to me. I've spent a good portion of my adult life studying totalitarian regimes, whether it's reading books or listening to podcasts or watching documentaries. And if you look at what's happening right now in our country, I can see that if you have a checklist of like, okay, here's the 10 things that a totalitarian regime will do as it seizes control over the populace, I'd probably say that we're checking off about 8 of those 10 things. I mean, we're not to the stage of gulags and concentration camps. We're not to the stage of, lining up political prisoners against the wall and executing them, or, forced starvation. But a lot of what we're seeing these are indicators that what's happened is our government has been hijacked by enemies, both foreign and domestic, and that there is a criminal cabal, you might call it. Actually, and really, to be honest, I believe there's multiple criminal cabals. I'm not going to get into that in tonight's show, but I believe there's multiple criminal cabals that want control of the world, and they are battling for control over the United States, because the United States is a very, very key nation when it comes to the ability to control the world. Okay, so if we're being sober and looking at it, it's like, yeah, we are inching towards a totalitarian system. I mean, some might say that in 2020, with the election, that our country underwent a coup. And I really believe that, right? You look at whether it's Ukraine, the Orange Revolution, or you look at the color revolutions that have happened all over the world, where our own agencies, whether it's the CIA or Mossad or any number of agencies, have gone in and they've done regime change. Like, they've picked the presidents. So, if these agencies are choosing the presidents of some African country or some South American country, do you really think they're going to let the American people just choose the guy that they want? No. So as we witnessed in 2020, we saw a complete just destruction of all that's holy with our election process. And we're now living to see the consequences. So as we walk through tonight's narrative, I'm going to first start with looking at some stuff that's coming out of North Carolina, Asheville region, et cetera, because it helps us to tie in the overall bigger picture of what's going on in this country. So I've got here, this is from Wall Street Apes, fantastic account over there on Twitter. So he says, wow, you do not hate the Kamala Harris admin enough. So here, a Hurricane Helene volunteers in North Carolina, quote, I've seen one FEMA agent since I've been here. We've been reported to the authorities for domestic terrorism. We're a bunch of special operation veterans. It doesn't get any more American than what we're doing. We're here to help the people. So I'm going to play this for you. It is 59 seconds long. But again, in looking at Are we seeing the indicators of our government turning against the people? Here's one of the 5,000 indicators that we've seen in the past couple of years. So I'll play this for you, 59 seconds.
I've seen one FEMA agent since I've been here. He approached the front gate of our facility, and his request was, get this, cooperate with local government. Hey, you guys need to cooperate. And we're like, what are you talking about? We have, like, look at all the law enforcement here. Look at all the firefighters here.
Yeah.
We've had state senators come out here and land. We've had congressmen come out here and land. We've had Fox News here. We've had several other news media here to really capture what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, then you've got people like me who I'm just a guy with a phone trying to get the word out because the mainstream media is not doing their job, and so you got a donkey like me trying to do it.
We've been reported to the authorities for domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of special operation veterans. It doesn't get any more American than what we're doing.
Yeah,
we're here to help the people. I've seen one FEMA agent.
And this is crazy. Okay, this guy he's former special operations, right? So maybe he was a Navy SEAL or an Army Ranger. So this is a guy that I'm guessing has probably seen multiple tours of duty, has gone into active enemy territory. Now, granted, I think a lot of us are looking at these wars and saying, okay, why are we fighting these wars? And these, our military is being used as a weapon for the globalist cabal to, seize oil and assets and take down, do regime change, everything. But we're not going to get into that. But the truth is that, our American soldiers, they've fought for our country, right? So this is a guy that was, risking his life. Not to mention the training that he went through, right? Like, I would never survive special ops training. Maybe like in a different life, if I was like really disciplined and I played with sports, high school sports, all that kind of stuff. Instead, I was an art kid. I lived in the art room. But the amount of suffering this guy has gone through because of his will to defend our country. And then the fact that, this guy's, look at him. He's a nice looking dude. Like, he's a kind looking man. Like, it's the kind of guy I'd want coming to my door during a crisis and saying, hey man, like, how can I help you out? What can I do for you? I've got some water. I've got some batteries. Here's a lighter, right? So this guy has done all this to sacrifice for our country, and he's now being labeled as a domestic terrorist. I mean, literally, this is what we're seeing as we're seeing the inversion. Now, why is this guy labeled a domestic terrorist? Well, because this is a guy that acts, right? There was looking back into history a little bit, there was a period of time back under Mao. And I forget which era, it might be in the 1950s or so, but there was a campaign called the 100 Flowers campaign. Now, I've talked about this before, especially as it relates to Twitter and my concerns with the freedom of speech opening up on Twitter. Are they just making a list of all the people that they can see exactly what we're thinking? But what they did under Mao was they opened up this campaign and they said, look, right, we're running our country with communism. It's not working very well. There's been a lot of deaths. We want everyone that has ideas of how to run the country. We want you to come out and let us know, right? So we're going to hold town hall meetings and everything. And, so we want, if you've got some ideas on how we can better run the country, please come out and voice your ideas, right? This is exactly what they did. So they had a huge number of people that came out, right? The intellectuals, the hardworking people that, the farmers that might have said, look, you guys are, handling the crops and the irrigation system's all wrong. Here's how we're doing it. So anybody that was willing to come out and offer feedback to the government on how they could run, all those people were put onto a list. And after the campaign, that opened up and brought them all out, after it ended, guess what they did? They went and they rounded all these people up. Okay, most of them ended up being killed, right? Whether they got a bullet in the back of their head or they died in a camp somewhere, it doesn't matter. So what they did though is they used these campaigns to see, okay, of our people, of our populace, who are the ones that are going to step forward? Who are the ones that are going to sacrifice for their fellow people? Who are the ones that are thinking, how can this country be better run? Right? The independent thinkers. You know who'd be on that list? Me, right? You know who else would be on that list? This guy. He'd be on the list, right? He'd be one of the people that they'd be saying, you know what? This guy's bad news, right? So here we have this guy's ex-special forces. Okay, that poses a threat. He talks about his country. He's obviously a domestic terrorist because he's prioritizing helping his fellow Americans. And so that's one of my concerns, is that when you see this, like right now, when we see these articles coming out, and this has happened the past couple of years, right? Especially under the Biden administration, you're seeing it, whether the FBI is coming out, or CIA, or any of these DOD, and they're talking about terrorism. It's now, what's being brought into this is that they're talking about American citizens as domestic terrorists based upon our political beliefs, right? So the fact that I might come onto a show like this, and I'm really, like, thankfully right now I feel pretty safe, but things could take a turn really quickly, right? But like if you follow this show, you know that I'm regularly questioning what the government is doing, and it's not in a positive light. It's not like, hey, you know what? Why did Joe Biden go with the red tie today instead of the blue? And I really like the blue tie on him. I wish he would have worn the blue tie, but he wore the red tie. That's not the kind of question I'm doing. I'm saying, hey, what's in these shots? Okay, who's running things? Why is all the money going over to Ukraine? Why is it coming back to us? Why are we in these wars? I mean, I'm second guessing all the narratives that the government doesn't want you to ask about, right? So I would be one of the people that's on that list. That guy would be one of the people that's on that list. Chances are that if you're watching this show, you're on the list too. So sorry, you're guilty by association. We're all in the same group together, that we're all on some list somewhere that says, you know what, once we ramp up the level of persecution and tyranny in this country, once we get to like level 6, that's when we're going after the first section of that list, the people that were sharing the pandemic series by Mickey Willis on Facebook, and the people that were, exposing what happened with the election in 2020. You better believe it, right? So this is an absolute reality. But what's crazy is that you have, guys like this that have sacrificed for our country. They're down there continuing to sacrifice for our country, doing search and rescue missions where they're finding dead bodies and who knows what down there. Absolutely depressing stuff, not to mention organizing donations and helping our fellow Americans. These are the guys being put on domestic terrorist list. I mean, it's so upside down. I don't recall, if you go back to say 2016 or 2020, I don't ever recall hearing in the news about people that were burning our cities down, that were burning down businesses, that were destroying public property. I never once heard any of them being put onto some sort of domestic terrorist list. I never saw anything about Antifa being designated as a domestic terrorist organization. I saw Proud Boys. I saw the far right groups being labeled that. But how insane is it, though? This is the country that we live in, that you can be part of this group, that you dress in black, you wear a mask so no one knows what you're doing. You go out and you burn cities down, you beat up innocent people, you smash up stores, you light fires, you shoot people, right? And this is all stuff that was happening under Antifa. And you get arrested and you're out 3 days later, right? Because you've got some Soros appointed DA or whatever it is that's saying, you know what, we're letting you back out. Yet you have a former Army Patriot Special Forces that has risked his life for our country, that is down helping the Americans that are most in need. By the way, these are people that are dying down there. They're still continuing to die due to lack of clean water, lack of food, hypothermia, etc. And this is the guy they put on a domestic terror list. I mean, this is absolutely insane. But if you look where the narrative's going, all right, so here's a Newsweek article bringing this up. Okay, this is a Newsweek. Armed militia, quote, hunting FEMA causes hurricane responders to evacuate. So this is the narrative that they're now pushing, is that armed militia is hunting down the FEMA agents. Now, I'm curious, okay, where's the evidence for this? Have they foiled some plans? They found some social media group where they were talking about hunting FEMA people. Did they find bodies? Were there like 3 murders? They found the dead FEMA people that, they were shot and they were executed or something like that. Is that what they're coming from? Let's go see what the article has to say, because it just came out. I mean, it was just updated today, updated October 15th. Okay. Well, let's see. Federal emergency response workers operating in North Carolina's Rutherford County in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene were told to evacuate on Saturday over concerns that an armed militia was threatening workers in the area. So it says that officials of the U.S. Forest Service were supporting recovery efforts, blah, 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 sent a message to numerous federal agencies at around 1 p.m. on Saturday, warning that FEMA had advised all federal responders to stand down and evacuate the county immediately. Says the National Guard troops had come across 2 trucks of armed militia saying they were hunting FEMA. Okay, so here's their proof. Okay, so you had National Guard troops had come across 2 trucks of armed militia saying they were out hunting FEMA. So if you just so happen to be one of these patriotic militia folks down there and you're down there trying to save people, okay, and the Army National Guard rolls up and they're like, hey guys, what are you doing with your trucks and your guns? Do you really think that these people are going to say, oh, we're actually out here hunting FEMA? Like, we're not distributing aid. We're not rescuing people. We came down here as a hunting party, so we're out here hunting FEMA. I mean, it's absurd to me. I mean, it maybe if it's video, you find the video, it's the Patriot Front, right? These guys that look like they're complete feds. But I don't know, okay, this is their evidence. It says that National Guard troops had come across 2 trucks of armed militia saying they were out hunting FEMA. Why on earth would anybody that was in that militia tell the National Guard that they're out hunting federal employees? It doesn't make sense at all. But what you can see, though, is that this is all about the narrative. It's all about pushing the narrative. It's all about attacking the people that want to uphold the values of our country, the people that want to help their fellow Americans. It's about demoralizing us. It's about making us think like, gosh, why even try? But the crazy thing is, and the awesome thing is that they're having the opposite reaction. Like we've through reporting on this, I've done like tons of shows lately. It's like been half the shows I've done, if not more, have been about these hurricanes and FEMA and the disaster relief. What we're seeing, the reaction of the public has been incredible. I mean, people are coming out, like they're flying down there, they're traveling, they're driving across the country. Like what we're seeing here is real America. Like we're seeing real Americans helping real Americans. And if anything, what this whole thing is showing us is that we don't need this massive federal government. Like that's what I'm seeing with this, is that it's the federal government, whatever they stick their hands into gets completely screwed up. Right. So it makes me want to go back to a time where we've got way less government, which is what I hope happens. But, that's out of my control, unfortunately. I mean, to a certain degree, obviously me doing the show and getting this information out there is part of it. Right. Which is a good reminder that if you're watching this right now, I have a special instruction for you. If you're watching on Rumble, make sure you hit that follow button. Right. That's a key. Hit the follow button. I know there's almost 3,000 of you on Rumble right now. So everyone hit that follow button. And the other thing is that if you enjoy the content, please share this content. Because I'm very shadow banned on the bigger platforms. So when you like what I'm doing and you share it with somebody, it really helps me to reach new people, because the information I'm presenting, I'd like to think is important for us to get out. Right. Because honestly, it's about unifying America. It's not about me constantly hitting like it's the left's problem, it's the left. And to be honest, if you look at Fox News, which I wholly believe is controlled opposition, their job is to make the right hate the left. That's their job. The job of the MSNBC, CNN, their job fundamentally is to make the left hate the right. It's a very simple tactic of divide and conquer. Right? If they can get our country to hate the other half of the country, then then no one's going to be pointing the fingers at the elites or the cabal. Everyone's going to be looking at each other. And this is what they're doing, though, is, as they're fomenting civil war and unrest, that's what they're trying to do. So just be wary of that, right? Like I've got this radar that goes off whenever I'm looking at content. If you come across any content creators that are like heavily reinforcing it's the left, the problem is the left, just be weary. I'm not saying that they're controlled opposition, because a lot of people get sucked into this and they're legitimately, they think that, yeah, this is the problem. It's the Democrats, right? But if you take a step back, what you realize is like, whoa, okay, So yes, there's a lot of corruption on the left, but there's also a lot of corruption on the right. And this whole two-party system thing, it's almost like, this guy named Edward Bernays, he wrote a book called Propaganda, right? About give them two choices, give them Coke or Pepsi. I really believe that the control mechanisms that are using to control our country, that a big part of it is creating a two-party system, right? It's coming in, owning up the media and creating the narrative and getting rid of any other dissenters. So it can just be two parties, because then it's really easy for them to control both parties, which is why they hate Donald Trump so much, is because I think that they have a hard time controlling this guy. So anyway, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is I'm trying to bring out a message of like, look, we have to unite as Americans. Yes, there's problems that, there's democratic policies that are absolutely terrible for our country. They're trying to take away our guns. They're pushing for abortion up to term, etc. There's some bad policies, but blaming everything on the left is not what's going to fix this country. I mean, we have to very fundamentally heal a divide in our country and come together as Americans again. Like in a lot of ways, we almost have to like destroy the whole system and rebuild it. Right. I'm not saying that we go blow things up. I'm not saying that, but like the system that our country is right now, this two-party system with the media and the education system and this massive bureaucratic deep state, it's almost like the whole thing needs to collapse and we have to rebuild something new. Right. But I'll say that for a later show, because that gets into a pretty heady topic. So continuing though, it's like, okay, well, who's controlling this country, right? Here's an interesting interview with Donald Trump that is about a minute long. He was on Glenn Beck recently. So
who's actually the president, Mr. President?
Well, I think it's a committee of people, and they might not even know who the committee is. They may not even know themselves. Does that make sense? It's a group of people that are in different levels of D.C., and they surround a man that was not the most capable person. By the way, never was.
Right.
But certainly not anymore.
Yeah.
And she's worse than he is. She's worse than he is. And the difference is she was a believer. She was a believer for a long time. She was a Marxist for a long time. She's further left than Bernie. You've heard that many times.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
So the key here is exactly, what was highlighted. That when Glenn says, who do you think is running this country? President Trump says, well, I think it's a committee of people. It's a group of people that are in different levels of DC. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to T. Woodward, who just donated over on Rumble. Thank you very much, T. Woodward. Appreciate the support. Thank you. Very kind of you. So, and again, it's like, it's a group of people that are in different levels of DC. I think it's much more complicated than that. It's much more global than that. But still, it's like the people, and this is, again, like part of what I feel like the psychological operation that we're undergoing right now is, even if you look at Kamala, you look at Joe Biden, right? And and a lot of people, or on the left, right? You have everyone focusing on Trump. That's exactly what they want, right? They want the more the right hates Kamala Harris and the more the left hates Donald Trump, the better the elites are doing at this social manipulation, this psychological operation to keep us all focused on fighting. Like they want to create the villain, but folks, the reality is Kamala is just a puppet. Like she is just a puppet. She does not have any independent will of her own. And I'm not just picking on Kamala. Like most of our politicians are literally just puppets. They are not making decisions. And so when we focus so much on these politicians, we're missing the point, right? A lot of these politicians, they're being controlled through blackmail, through bribery. Like look at the Diddy stuff that's coming out now. Look at Epstein, right? So we think that, gosh, why did this politician, why did he vote that way? Why did he vote to send another $100 million over to Ukraine? Like, do you really think that these people are just like you and I? I mean, honestly, do you think these politicians that get elected to be a senator or, a representative in the House or whatever it is, do you really think that they're sitting there thinking, what's the best decision for America? Should I really care about the American people. I care about my constituents. I want to make sure that I'm voting for the best for them. And so I'm going to vote this way. Like, do you think that that's how it works? No, right? How it works is that there's a bill coming up, right? That, whether it's a funding bill or any number of bills, And, they say the bill is, is Congress going to send another $100 million over to Zelensky? And that's coming up, and they're getting their phone call, or they're getting their guy pulls them aside and says, okay, you're going to vote yes on this and vote no on this. And that's it, right? Now, why do they do it? Any number of reasons, because maybe this person says, maybe at the very early stage of their career as a politician, they get elected. It's great. The senator, they do a trip somewhere, and they go celebrate a little bit. And then like on day one, they sit down in this meeting. These guys are like, okay, well, here's how it's going to work. We're going to call you, here's a pager, and we're going to send you a message, and we're going to tell you exactly how to vote on everything. And this person's like, no, you're not. Like, I was elected. This is America. And they say, okay, sir, play the video. Okay. He looks up and he sees a video of them in a hotel room with a young boy, and they have no memory of it. Right. This is how good they are. This blackmail operation, they have no memory of it. Right. Because they could have been in a bar and that, someone, slipped something in their drink. They could have been at some sort of party. Who knows? But what they say is that, look, if you don't vote how we want you to vote, we're going to leak this to the press. That's it. And it's that simple. Right. So to think that these politicians, like in a lot of ways, honestly, I feel bad for these politicians. Like I really do. I know a lot of them are actively doing bad things to our country, but like I feel bad for these people. Like they had normal lives, and they may have had, honestly, they may have had the best of intentions when they went in to try to become a public figure, or say a public servant like that. But then this system that ensnares and traps people with blackmail and bribery, it'll even turn good men into slaves. It's unfortunate to say, but that's the system that we live in. So when we're looking at, okay, who's running things, it's like, well, it's very complicated. And I could do 10 shows on just my own understanding of like the battles going on. Because I really do believe that there's multiple groups, there's multiple global cabals that want control over the world. At one point, I think they were unified. It was much more centralized, but I think in the past, say 50 years or so, there's been a building up, and now it's separated. There's multiple groups that are fighting to control the world, right? They all want control, but America is this key chess piece in this game of chess that they're fighting over, which is why it feels very chaotic, right? If you look at what's happening, even look at what happened with Biden and Kamala, right? Like with the division, you hear these reports coming out behind the scenes of what's happening with the Obamas and Biden and Kamala, and there's massive infighting. And it's like, does it sound like this is some like highly coordinated, centralized operation? No, I think that there's people that are in our politicians in the political sphere that are being controlled by different parties, and these different parties have different interests, right? So again, this is what we're looking at in this country. So continuing though, speaking of Kamala, and not to give you more reasons to be upset, but so what we're seeing is that, okay, and what we're talking about in tonight's show is how the military could potentially be used against the American people. Now, one thing, if you go back and you look at Saul Alinsky, right, rules for radicals, something that's very common, and it just in communism in general, but also just corruption and crime, is that you accuse the enemy of doing what you're doing, right? And this is key. You accuse them of what you're doing. So let's listen to this 29-second clip of Kamala, and then think about this in relationship to this, what we're diving into next, which is this DOD directive.
He is out for unchecked power. That's what he's looking for. He wants to send the military after American citizens. He has worked to prevent women from making their own health care decisions and threaten your fundamental freedoms and rights, like the freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. And he is out for...
So you go, right? So she's projecting that, like, he's gonna use the military against people. Like I've never heard Trump say that, right? Like I've never had him see that before, right? But here she goes. I'll play it again for you.
And he is out for unchecked power. That's what he's looking for. He wants to send the military after American citizens. He has worked to prevent women from making their own health care decisions.
So, talk about projection. I mean, it's concerning. It's absolutely concerning. But now let's jump into the kind of headline story today. So there's a little bit of an interview I'm going to play with Ron Paul, right? So here you go. Ron Paul warns that the U.S. military was just, quote, authorized to kill Americans on U.S. soil. And he says, I think it's very, very dangerous. So this is an interview with Daniel McAdams. So check out this. It's 3 minutes long. I'll play the whole thing for you. Let me go in full screen so you can focus on this.
We want to start off with a headline from ZeroHeadge. It's a pretty hot headline. U.S. military now is authorized to kill Americans on U.S. soil. That can't be possible. Yeah. This would open up the door for the careless use, and if more frequent and legal. It'll be legal now, so nobody will have to worry about that. Send in the troops. We need you to shoot a couple of these people. Yeah. They're opposing our policies. They're demonstrating against COVID rules or something they'll come up with. So I think it's very, very dangerous.
So here it is. Now, ZeroHeadge picked it up from Armageddon Pros, which is a Substack which they often run. It says, U.S. military now authorized to kill Americans on U.S. soil? Just ahead, intriguingly, of November elections, and that was my second thought, the military has granted itself permission to unleash lethal force on the civilian population. Again, I thought this has got to be an exaggeration, so I went and looked, and actually go to the next one because this explains what it is. Now, it's not a law. It's a DOD directive. So this is, the administrative state where they take over. They don't pass laws. They are laws unto themselves. Go to the next one if you can, because this is what they're talking about. And I went and I read this secondly, and it talks about a reissued DOD directive that was reissued just on September 27th, 2024. It governs the Department of Defense intelligence activities and now includes provisions authorizing lethal force in certain circumstances. And it supplants the 2016 version, which did not mention that. So I read all of this too, which is someone else's analysis. I said, okay, this sounds even more troubling. I want to go look at the document itself. And so go to the next one. I actually went and looked at the DOD directive. It's DOD Directive 5240.01. Now go to the next one. I'm just going to get to this really quick so I can, just so people, this is on their own website. Now this is section 3 of that directive. Assistance to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities. Now go to the next one. Now this is levels of authority. This is section 3.3. Defense intelligence components may provide personnel to assist a federal department or agency, including a federal law enforcement agency or a state or local law enforcement agency, when lives are in danger in response to such a request for such assistance in accordance with the following approval authorities. Now here are the authorities. I'm sorry to get so far into the woods here, but go to the next one. Responding with assets with potential for lethality, and I underlined this, I highlighted it, or any situation where it is reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. I'm sorry to bog the discussion down with that, Dr. Ball, but I really wanted to hone in on this is their actual document. It's not just someone's analysis.
So we're going to dive into this now. Let me pull this up.
But we want to start off.
So this is the actual directive. Okay. So it's DOD Directive 5240.01. This is an article on GreenMedInfo. It's a great website I found that when researching this. So this walks through because it's a pretty extreme thing to say that hey, the DOD just authorized the military to use deadly force against American citizens. Yeah, that's a pretty serious deal. Okay, so let's go ahead and just look through this, and again, giving credit to GreenMedInfo for this. So they say, imagine waking up to discover that the U.S. military has quietly been granted the authority to assist in domestic law enforcement activities, including the use of lethal force against U.S. citizens in certain circumstances. Now, consider that this change was enacted just weeks before an election, already surrounded by concerns about civil unrest, civil liberties, and potential government overreach. This is the reality of DOD Directive 5240.01, reissued on September 27th, 2024. So this was a previous directive that I think was last updated, if I'm not mistaken, around 2016. But so what all the fuss is about is that the new version, the update to this is when they added all this extra information about using potentially lethal force against American citizens. So quick summary. So new provisions, it says the updated directive expands the circumstances under which the DOD can assist law enforcement, including the use of lethal force. Assassination is explicitly forbidden, which is kind of interesting, right? That, okay, it says while assassination is banned, the new language allows for lethal actions under imminent threats. Concerns about civil liberties. The expanded definition of national security threats is raising alarms, particularly given DHS's broader definition of domestic terrorism threats. Okay, so remember that we spent the first chunk of this show talking about how they're now rebranding a lot of American patriots as domestic terrorists. Okay, so let me get back a little more into the introduction of this. Okay, so as the U.S. prepares for one of the most controversial and closely watched elections in its history, a concerning update to the DOD Directive 5240.01 has been quietly put into effect. So reissued on September 27, 2024, the directive governs the Department of Defense's intelligence activities and now includes provisions authorizing lethal force in certain circumstances when assisting civilian law enforcement. While the directive forbids assassination, it opens the door to lethal interventions under national security conditions. So continuing to read through here, what it says the reissuance of DOD Directive 5240.01 repealed previous versions, including the 1982 one. Actually, maybe that was when it was before, as 82. So while the update might seem routine, the changes regarding the use of lethal force in domestic operations are significant. Actually, here's 2016. So in the 2016 version, the directive primarily focused on intelligence collection, spying, aka on you and I, and ensuring civil liberties protections for U.S. persons. It emphasized strict oversight and the need for authorization before collecting U.S. personal information. However, the 2024 version expands the military's role, particularly in assisting civil law enforcement, and authorizes lethal force under specific conditions, raising questions about its use during potential civil unrest surrounding the election. Okay, and here's actual screenshots of the information. This goes through and shows the differences. It shows the new provisions that were added. So let's look really right here. So levels of authority, right? It's going here and saying that assistance in responding with assets, meaning military assets, whether it's men, tanks, guns, etc., with potential for lethality or any situation for which is reasonable for which it is reasonably foreseeable to that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. Okay, so there's more information about the time frame and everything. So why timing matters. It says the timing of this update just 6 weeks before the election raises concerns. With debates surrounding election integrity, civil unrest, and political manipulation, the expanded powers granted by the directive could lead to military intervention in domestic affairs if civil unrest arises. Adding to the concern is the DHS's recent expansion of what constitutes domestic terrorism. The DHS has flagged individuals questioning COVID origins, vaccine efficacy, or election integrity as potential threats. Okay, so here you go. This is from the DHS, Department of Homeland Security. Potential terror threats, opposition to COVID measures, claims of election fraud, belief that Trump can be reinstated, 9/11 anniversary, and religious holidays. So these are the terror threats, okay? So it says this raises questions about how the DOD's new authority to use or assist civil law enforcement to use lethal force might be applied in future domestic situations. Okay, so now it's going in and talking about how this directly kind of correlates to the Constitution and what it kind of steps across. But what they're saying that fundamentally is that the recent reissuance of this directive represents a significant legal shift that could potentially compromise our core constitutional protections that we hold dear. So this is a big thing, folks. It really is, right? So here they're saying that the 2024 update represents a significant shift in the military's role in domestic law enforcement. While proponents argue that high-level approvals add oversight, critics can see it as an expansion of military power in domestic affairs. As the election approaches, maintaining a balance between national security and individual rights becomes ever more crucial. The implications of this directive may reshape the relationship between military power and civilian governance in the U.S. All the more reason why the conspicuous absence of reporting on the subject is further concerning, and why open public debate on this change of DoD policy should be engaged as soon as possible. We hope this article contributes to that goal. I hope that this show contributes to that goal, right? Because this is these are the receipts, right? Folks are okay. This is, fear porn. Where are your receipts? Well, here it is right here, right? You can read it for yourself. You can see this information here. Now, this is such a slippery slope because let's just imagine, hypothetically, let's imagine that there's a group of Antifa and say they do like a Chaz type thing, right? Where they have overtaken a whole city and they've claimed it and say they're doing really bad stuff there, right? You'd say, okay, well, could the National Guard be deployed? And if they're fighting back, could the National Guard use lethal force against them? And you would say, yeah, I mean, it seems reasonable that the National Guard would be deployed, et cetera, right? So it does seem like, yes, there are instances where I could see this playing out, but the real question that I have is the timing of it. Why is it that this directive was just updated now, right? With all this talk about domestic terrorism from folks like you and I, all of the uncertainty heading into the election, the civil unrest, right? Like I interviewed, I think it was Mark, I forget his last name, with Rasmussen Reports. Recently told me that nearly close to 50%, it was like 42% of all Americans, I think of the adults, what they're estimating based on the polling, that 42% believe that a civil war will happen within the next 5 years, right? So this is what concerns me, is the timing of this. Why is it that they're coming out just now with the timing? And honestly, I mean, I don't want to be a fearmonger. I really don't want to be. But when you put all these things together, there's just my spidey senses telling me that they're planning something significant. If you look at what's happening in the polls, you look at, say, Polymarket, right, which is showing what people are betting on of Trump versus Kamala. Actually, I'll pull it up. Let me find that. I'm just curious where it's at. Give me a quick second to find this. So Polymarket, Trump, Kamala, right? So Polymarket, which represents like what the actual public is betting on, right? You can see that as of right now, that the public is betting. So here's the website, that Trump is at 58% and Kamala is at 41%. I mean, now again, this isn't a poll. This isn't like a Nate Silver or a CNN poll. These are literally representative of what people have bet $1.9 billion on. Okay, is that correct? Like that's how much money has been bet? So yeah, this is the betting volume. 1.9 billion. So 1,926,000,000, et cetera. That's how much money has been bet on on the election. So if you look at the fact that, look, it wasn't always like pro-Trump, right? So before, like back in, say, August, Kamala was up 52, Trump was at 45%, right? So the fact that there's this kind of a spread, that Trump is at 58%, Kamala's at 41%, and it's only widening, right? What this shows now, of course, look, we saw in 2020, they can have all kinds of shenanigans they can pull. But what this is showing us is that this is what the general population believes. Like they're seeing through it, right? And you even seeing that CNN or other news organizations are typically much more leftist, in a lot of ways, they're kind of turning on Kamala, right? So there's part of me that thinks that what's happening is that there's been such a massive momentum of support for President Trump, especially after living under Biden in the past couple of years, that you're having your key groups, right? So the independents are heavily swinging, towards conservative, and I think that you're having a lot of the Democrats that are leaving the party, right? Whether it's the minorities or just your typical, it seems like the only people that are really kind of buckling down en masse is like middle-aged liberal women seem to be what make up the core of the Democrats. But most other people seem to be swinging outside and saying, hey, look, we're going for Trump this time. Even if they hated Trump, they're still voting for him. Like I'm seeing all kinds of posts about this. So what this shows you is that they're losing control. Okay. Now, I also think that maybe there's a plan where they've accepted that Trump is going to be the one that's going to win. And so they have a whole plan around that. And actually, that's what worries me in a lot of ways even more, is I think that what they're doing now is they're now aligning around that. They're aligning around the fact that that they're not going to be able to pull a 2020 again in 2024, right? Go back to 2020. Think about how censored the media was, how censored social media was, how many Americans were tuning in to CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News, right? Fox News, in my opinion, was the most guilty of all news organizations when it came to the theft of the 2020 race, right? I'll be a little bit more cautious because we're on YouTube right now, right? So the trust in mainstream media has plummeted since then. People are watching shows like this. They're on Rumble, they're on Twitter. So the average person's now learning about things that they didn't have access to because of censorship, 2, 3, 4 years ago. So my concern is that they're gearing up for Trump being in, but let's just say that he wins in November. There's a couple of month period before inauguration. And my worry is that it's going to be absolute chaos. And these directives that we're seeing and a lot of the other stuff that we're seeing going on is going to be absolute chaos. It's kind of like, look, if they can't stop Trump getting in, they're going to completely just burn down the house before he takes over and hand him a country that's barely functioning. Like it's my concern. Call me a worry wart, whatever you want to call me, but that's, I think, what's going on there. So continuing, I see a couple of things I wanted to go over with you as it relates to this. One thing, it's just like, okay, well, has the U.S. military ever needed to use deadly force on Americans? Well, there's actually, this is an AI search, but there's actually, there's been definitely times when the American government has turned on its people, right? You probably remember the Kent State shooting, right, in 1970. Right, where the Ohio National Guardsmen shot and killed 4 students, right? And it's not just America. I mean, if you look at any country that has fallen to tyranny, like at some point, the military turns on the people. Now, my hope in this, and I do have a lot of hope. I know this is a little more of a doomsday episode, but I do have a lot of hope because I still believe that there's a lot of really good Americans. I believe there's a lot of people in the military that would say, no, like I'm not turning on my fellow Americans. Like I really believe that, right? Which also makes me wonder is that if you look at what they did with the jab, right, and the mandates for the jab, I almost think that part of what that was, it was purging the people in the military that weren't going to go along with it, right? I think that the jab was a massive psychological operation among many other things, but what it was doing those is establishing who's going to go along with whatever order the government gives them. I think the masks were part of that. The masks and social distancing, those are part of this psyop, this massive psyop to see how many Americans will go along with it. And they got you used to social distancing. They got you used to washing your hands all the time. They got you used to wearing a mask. And then they got you used to getting your first jab, then your boosters. And then you know what? They're going to say, hey, you know what? Snitch on your neighbor. If you see a neighbor having a party, like, my wife is Australian. We heard a lot of stories coming out of Australia during the pandemic. And there was like massive neighbor snitching going on. It was crazy, right? So this is what they're trying to bring out. But I really do believe that there's enough good people in our military that if let's just say that there's a directive and they said, look, we need you to fire on these American citizens. Would some of them do it? Absolutely, right? There's bad people everywhere. But I really think that there's a lot of folks that would say, look, I'm not. Right? I'm walking away. I will not fire on my own citizens. And that does give me hope. Honestly, it does give me hope. I really do think that as much as I feel like that their goal is to just completely destroy everything, I think that we will get through it. And actually, so I'll give you a quick, something really exciting is that so prepping and preparedness is really near and dear to me, right? I would, I don't like labels, but I'd consider myself a prepper, right? Like if I showed you my food collection or whatever it is, you'd be like, okay, yeah, Seth's pretty serious about this stuff, right? But as I've told you, I'm actually in the process of writing a book, and the book, I think that we're probably a couple of weeks away from the book being finished. I mean, it's a lot of work, but what we're doing though is the book I'm giving away for free, right? This is the cool part, is I'm literally giving away the book for free once it's done. And the book is called Prep Like Noah. So I'm super excited about this, but what's also fun, I'll pull this up, is that I have partnered on the book with Heaven's Harvest, right? So Heaven's Harvest, I work with amazing survival food. So check this out. I got them to throw in, they're going to be giving away, I think it's okay. They're going to give away, I think we're still finalizing the details, but it looks like a 6-month food supply, a 3-month food supply, and a 1-month food supply. So they're going to be giving away, I think it's probably closer to $10,000 worth of food that they're giving away. And so what you do, if you want to get a copy of the book when it comes out for free, you go to preplikenoah.com. This is just a mock-up here. It's not the actual cover, it's just a mock-up I did just for, for graphic sake. So it's Prep Like Noah. So this is what the book is going to be called, Prep Like Noah. And actually, I'm gonna read you part of it because I think you're gonna be really excited about it. So preplikenoah.com takes you here. And if you enter in here, you put in your name and your email, then what's going to happen is that we'll email you the book as soon as it's finished for free, right? That's because it's part of my mission to educate people on preparedness. Like I want you to make it through whatever we have to get through. So you get the book is emailed to you for free, but you're automatically entered in to win upwards of 6 months. So imagine you get 6 months of storable food. Like if you've priced this stuff out, you know how expensive it is to get these food buckets. So we're giving away 6 months, 3 months, and 1 month of storable food to everybody that downloads the book. Like I convinced them. I said, look, guys, like we're going hard on prepping. We're giving away a free book, and how about you give away some free food for people? Like, okay, great. They're great people. They love it. They love it. But what I'm going to do for you though, actually, is I'm going to give you a little preview of this. So let me go and pull this into a new window real quick so I can read it for you. But actually, I'm going to read you the introduction of this. So let me pull that back up on screen. So this is this is still kind of rough. It's still in process. But let me read you just the introduction to the book. So introduction to Prep Like Noah. So in the days of Noah, the world was going to hell in a handbasket. Corruption, violence, and immorality had become the norm, and good men were hard to find. But in the midst of that chaos, though, Noah stood apart. God told him that something was coming, and he took action. While the rest of the world carried on, Noah prepared. He built the ark, not because it made sense to those around him, but because he knew in his soul that he had to be ready for what was ahead. Do you ever feel like we're living in the days of Noah? It's hard to look around and not see the parallels. Our society celebrates what's evil and mocks what's virtuous. Corruption has seeped into every corner of our nation, our schools, Hollywood, DC, the music industry, the arts, the food and drug industry, the media, our intelligence agencies, even our churches. For those of us who still believe in the values our country was built on, faith, family, and freedom, America today feels like a foreign land or an enemy-occupied territory. But just as Noah felt the need to prepare for the coming storm, many of us feel that same feeling in our gut today. Something is shifting. Whether it's the attack on morality and traditional values, the political unrest, the increase in catastrophic natural disasters, the millions of illegals streaming across our border, or your gut feeling that something big is on the horizon, we can't ignore the signs. It's not about fear. It's about being aware and taking action, just like Noah did. Prep Like Noah is about recognizing the world we're living in for what it is and taking the steps to prepare for whatever may come. It's not just about stocking up on beans and brass. It's about getting your house in order physically, mentally, and spiritually. Just as Noah prepared for the flood, we too are being called to get ready for the challenges that lie ahead. It took flooding the entire earth to wipe out the evil in Noah's time. Can we really expect smooth sailing when the evil of our time is wiped out? There's a lot of folks in this country that don't want to look at or acknowledge how precarious a state our nation is in. They believe the government will help them in times of crisis. They trust what the media tells them, and they prefer discussing sports over politics. This book is not for them. This book is for the folks that are sober about the state of the world and want to be proactive about ensuring they can make it through the challenging times ahead. This book is for you. The world may not understand you, just like they didn't understand Noah. But those who see the signs know it's time to act. We're not waiting for the storm to hit. We're preparing for it. And just like Noah, we'll be ready. So that's the introduction of the book, Prep Like Noah, which, again, it's if I showed you, I think I'm up to like probably 50 or 60 pages now. It's dense. It's kind of an easy guide, though. It's going to be really, really easy. It's kind of like prepping 101, just making sure that it's really basic stuff that you can get all your stuff in order to make sure you get through whatever's coming. So anyway, preplikenoah.com. You go there, you sign up to get the book as soon as it's out, and you're automatically entered in to get up to 6 months worth of storable food. So as we are kind of wrapping up, I have one other advertiser I want to talk to you about, which is Balance of Nature. So just a quick kind of announcement, folks, is that I want you to hold off on purchasing your first order from Balance of Nature because I've got some information that you need to hear. So if you go to balanceofnature.com to buy their popular fruits and veggies supplements, a discount offer will pop up. It may say 20 or 25% off or even 30% off. Okay, but don't click on that because if you use my code, you're going to get 35% off your first order plus free shipping. So my special code is Seth, S-E-T-H. So use my code as Save Big. Here's another bonus. So Balance of Nature has a risk-free money-back guarantee. So go ahead and find out for yourself what I already know. There's no other product out there like Balance of Nature when it comes to fruit and veggie supplements. So whether you order online or call them direct, you must use promo code Seth to get this special offer, 35% off and free shipping. So call them at 800-246-8751 and use this discount code Seth, or order online at balanceofnature.com with discount code Seth to get 35% off. So anyway, Balance Nature, great guys. Also, if you're prepping, having a bunch of, freeze-dried, kind of pill capsules with fruit and veggies inside is not a bad thing to have. So in my opinion, it's a great prepping resource. All right, so folks, as we are finishing up, I actually have a little surprise for you. Just not as a surprise, it's something kind of special. So there is I love looking into ancient cultures, ancient languages, and I think there's something that, especially when you hear them, that takes you back to something before our modern age. And I really feel like I'm someone that was born, 100, 200 years, too late. Like I wish I was born in the 1800s. As much as it would have been difficult, as there's difficulty at those times, I just feel like that I really don't like this modern society. Maybe you're the same as me. Like I would love to go back to a time when there's no phones, no cell phones, no internet, where you just lived off the land and you had a community of people, like Little House on the Prairie. I love it. So when I come across things that take us back to these ancient times, I absolutely love them. So what I have for you is it's an Aramaic rendition of Psalm 50. So there's this. I don't have a lot of background information of this group, this singing group. They're performing actually for the Pope, which I'm not going to get into my opinions on the Pope right now, but the song itself is beautiful. So think about it. Okay, the song I'm going to play for you, this is a 3.5 minute section of it. This is being sung in Aramaic. So a lot of experts say that Aramaic is actually what Christ spoke, right? So that he read and understood Hebrew, but actually the conversational language is Aramaic. So to think about that this is actually an ancient tongue, right, from thousands of years ago, singing this. I was just so moved by this. So again, it's a little 3.5 minutes long, but check this out. I'll full screen it for you because I'm not going to talk anymore. Just listen to it and let me know what you think in the comments. I don't know. I just maybe you have a similar reaction to me. I couldn't stop listening. I found that, and I was just like, gosh, this is just yeah. Actually, Rhythm 2 in the chat saying that this vibration from this song is spectacular. Yeah, it's and I really believe that this is a whole different thing. But my wife is a musician, and she's studied music extensively, not just music, but just like the power of sound as a healing device. And I just think that you get into sound and frequencies and everything. There is so much that we don't understand. There's so much that, and not that we don't understand, it's been hidden from us, right? Like I saw some chats from people, as I was talking about ancient cultures and everything, people bringing up Tartaria. And actually, I plan on, let me know what you think about this, but actually I plan on doing some more shows. I'm going to be doing some more deep dive stuff into things like Tartaria, hidden history, giants, Nephilim. Those are things that fascinate me that I'm thinking about me creating a different like kind of segment of the Man in America show where I'm exploring kind of conspiracies, right? Where we walk through together because I've looked, looking at Tartaria and look at the civilizations that seem to existed here in America before. I'm just absolutely mind blowing. Like the fact that there's thousands of kind of old tunnels underneath Chicago as one example. Like it's crazy stuff. So anyway, that is the conclusion of our show tonight. I want to remind everyone before you finish to make sure you go to preplikenoah.com. Make sure you sign up to get the free book. I'm so excited for it. And the cool thing is that once the book comes out, I'm going to do a huge series of like maybe 5 or 6 shows where I'm walking through the book with you, where I'm literally doing a show just like this. But obviously adding a lot more extra information. So if you've got that book, you can print it out. It's free. You have a study guide, and I'll be having these shows where I'm walking through everything from like food storage techniques to energy, to medicine, self-defense. Like if you can only have one gun, what would it be? Why do you choose 9mm over 45? Whatever. Like we're gonna be diving deep into this. Like if I showed you, actually, let me see. Actually, I'll show you real quickly. Okay, here's a little preview for you guys, right? So this is actually right here. This is the books, right? So here's the Get Right with God, introduction, water, food storage, fuel and energy. I mean, it's chock full of information here. So all of this, I'm still in the editing phase right now, but all of this is going to be free. It's going to be really, really good, and I'm intentionally making it really, really easy to understand. Right. So it's not going to be some really complex book. It's like a lot of bullet lists, and it's just super practical. It's like, okay, you got to purify water. How do you purify water? Okay, you can boil the water. You get these tablets for the water. You can use filtration systems. Here's the filtration systems I use. Right. So, and a lot of it is modeled after how we live our life. Like we live our life in a way that we're very prepared. So that's my intention, because I want, like my core belief is, if you go back to Noah. Okay, what happened during the days of Noah? The evil was running rampant all over the world. I really feel like we're living in the days of Noah. There's also modification of the DNA. So the human DNA was being messed with, similar to right now. And so, but if you look at the role of the flood was actually to wipe out all the evil. And so Noah, the role of the ark was not for Noah to build an ark. It was because God wanted him to help rebuild the earth after all the evil was wiped out. And I really believe that this is where we're at. Like, I believe that in our lifetimes, we will see this process of the collapse of the evil in our world, the collapse of this cabal that we're up against. But it's going to be, it's going to be difficult. Like, look, like the entire earth was flooded to wipe out the evil before. So what makes you think it's going to be really easy this time around? So my goal, though, with this book and a lot of what I'm doing is to say, hey, here's how we can all build our arcs, because I really believe that God wants us to make it through. God wants us to get through to the other side of whatever's coming so we can really help do what needs to be done with this world. So anyway, preplikenoah.com. Make sure you sign up. All right, folks. That's it for tonight. I think I've got a good interview coming up. And then this weekend is the Reawaken tour. So this Friday and Saturday is the final Reawaken tour. I'll be speaking there, but also you can watch the entire tour on this channel. So Friday and Saturday, we'll have an all-day live stream of the entire event. It's going to be down in near Charlotte. Selma. North Carolina. So it's near Raleigh, Durham, I think is what is the airport there. So anyway, that's going to be this weekend. So we'll have some shows coming out for you. Then Friday, Saturday, we have Reawaken Tour, and we're just going to keep going, folks. So thank you again for being here. I love seeing all of you here. I love seeing the comments. And actually, my thing now, when I do my live shows, I wear my flannel shirts, right? So if I do my interviews, depending on the guest, I'll put my nice jacket on. But I love, because it's late for me. It's past 11 o'clock, and I love being able to be comfortable. And my wife bought me some new flannels, so hey, life is good. All right, folks, take care. God bless. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful evening.